S&box, a game in development by face-punching Garry Newman himself, has a very long way to go, and as of this video, it's still in heavy development. The initial reaction to many people who've seen numerous videos about the game have had a set of mixed feelings, including some folks claiming that S&box is nothing like Garry's mod, but rather more of Roblox 2.0 or even an adult version of Roblox. Now with such a statement, this does kind of seem a bit more true in some cases, but that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Can this actually be true? And if so, how would this even compare to the enormous giant that already exists and is so-called trying to be like? If you know what S&box is, skip to this part here. Otherwise, keep on watching as I'll give you the reasons to what it even is. First off, S&box is a spiritual successor to Garry's mod, not a sequel. If you're wondering why it's not Garry's mod 2, the reason is shown on screen right here. Rather than just being a game that is for modifying your experience and playing different game modes like Garry's mod is, S&box builds on top of that by allowing you to create more fully fleshed out games to play and provides a platform called Acid.Party, which acts like Steam's workshop, which allows Facepunch to have full control over, but also allows for both players and developers to make games and experience them with. S&box does provide multiplayer support by default, the ability to create single-player games with save states, add-ons to customize your game's experience, which has been a staple taken directly from Garry's mod, full-on controller support for Xbox and PlayStation controllers, VR headset support, and cross-play support, the type that's like in VR chat where you can play with non-VR headset users at the same time, an invite system directly through Steam, which you can create your lobbies with your friends and also join them from, and also the huge possibility down the line of being able to take your game from S&box using the Source 2 engine and directly create a standalone version of the game to sell on the Steam store. Yeah, this is a wild one, but we'll talk about that later. Now that you understand the gist of what S&box is, let's get into some arguments about how this could be possible. The art direction of the characters themselves basically do tell quite a bit about the game already. While they have been shown off numerous amount of times, the visceral reaction from many folks that see Terry the Sausage character for the first time does seem to shock majority of people from its ugly appearance. Some would say that from the presentation alone, this has a slight weird sort of corporate look to it, and for others, they just feel like it's downright an abomination. The influences for the creation of these characters is due to Garry's love for shows like Bullseye, with the interesting look of some of the show's contestants, and also Crapston Villas, a 90s mature rated British animated show, which features a set of characters and a comedy satire take on inner city London life with foul language, sex, and violence. It was also mentioned directly through Garry's blog post, as he did talking about the creation of Terry. I've heard quite a few people mention that the models are like something out of a children's show. I can accept that, and while first impressions are important, I totally don't see that as a negative. I kinda enjoy when things look one way and turn out to be another. As the previous reference to Crapston Villas that I mentioned earlier, you can definitely tell that in a way Garry is also trying to create his own twisted and messed up version of Crapston Villas in a way, but with S&box. Another argument could be the direction that the games are being made on the platform tend to be. One of them being the most infamous, which is Terry's Sex Simulator, a rhythm game based off of the idea of two sausage characters fornicating whilst the game ridicules you for continuing to play it.
Sausage man moving and back and forth. Are you playing?
Which in a way sets a part of the tone, both from its absurd nature and also its satire factor when the game was created. Of course, you have games like Cat Harvest, where you harvest cats to free them or for profit, Grubs, a game where you murder each other as terror-styled worms, Trouble in Terrorist Town, a classic where you have to find the terrorists murdering people in the game, or Wise Guys, a tower defense game where you murder opposing police in turn to keep them off your huge pile of cash at the end of the path. Most, if not a good chunk of these games, do have a good amount of violence and other themes that would not be fit for children to be playing them. But then again, there's games like Fortnite, which children do play too, but either way, this video isn't about Fortnite. The possible audience that could come with this, I would feel, is of an older nature. Yes, of course, every game nowadays has its fair share of children in it, but with S&box, it does slightly feel more mature in some regards, specifically with its presentation, very disturbing character design, and overall just the attitude of the game's development and the decisions that are being made for the game. I do want to say that yes, Roblox has recently started allowing 18+ content, which is very interesting as a choice since there is rather teens and also adults playing the game, but the amount of content already on Roblox that is not 18+ does outweigh what's currently being presented. Yes, it's there, but obviously that's not the intended audience for the initial game's focus. So both Roblox and S&box do have some form of similarities in some cases, not all. Some of these are, both games are considered as content platforms where developers and players can create and experience games made on it. Both of these games are built for longevity. While Roblox officially launched long ago before the official release of Garry's Mod back in September 1st of 2006, just 2 months before the Garry's Mod official release on Steam on November 29, 2006. Yes, I'm not including Garry's Mod 1, even though it was out long before Roblox in 2004. Roblox has still been kicking ever since then, and while Garry's Mod has been around for 17 years, Facepunch's model for S&box, according to their website, is, we see this as a long-term thing, something for us to work on and improve every day for the next couple of decades. Both of these games support the idea of paying their developers for their games and work on the platform, while Roblox has their developer exchange program, which some folks have mentioned their method of doing this is quite not satisfactory due to controversies and treatment of their developers on that platform. Garry has mentioned previously through the S&box Discord that they don't have a payment system yet in regards to something like paid assets until something comes along that makes it really easy. This has been a topic for conversation quite a bit since S&box is a take on the live service platform, just like Roblox. This next section mentions about the possibilities of monetization, and if you're not interested in that sort of thing, you could just skip here. But the screenshots I've provided, again, most of these talk about the idea of monetization in some way. Disclaimer, these are not final in terms of what Garry and Facepunch are going to do with the game. This is basically just up in the air in terms of what they can and can't do. Garry has mentioned the easiest way of paying asset creators was through selling tokens via Steam microtransactions and then do payouts via Steam's workshop if Valve would allow them, which Valve thought would be a possible way to pay game creators. Garry did clarify that Facepunch has to balance with not treating players like gamblers coming into the casino to empty their pockets. Another person had asked Garry in terms of saying, wouldn't it be better for the community to decide what exactly they want to do and only interfere in stuff like you said when players become slot machines? Garry's response to this was, I am all for letting developers monetize, but it needs to be more considered than enabling it. Plus, there's zero chance that we can release all monetized to hell. That isn't the message we want to send. He continued that response with, it's total good faith. No way to monetize, no special hats and admin rights to sponsoring. He clarified further in terms of getting paid for a developer making a game wasn't going to be S&box stuff. The best reference that Garry had alluded to was Fortnite's engagement payout program, where Facepunch would distribute a pool of cash based on the player hours and total players playing said game and overall engagement on that game. When a person mentioned about paid games on S&box being a thing, Garry had specified that it'd be simpler for him if a developer makes their game paid by just releasing it on Steam. Also, when asked if Facepunch would take a cut of the revenue if the S&box game was published on Steam, Garry had responded with, not really. Garry has also stated specifically with the idea of what could be possible with developers making money for S&box and Facepunch that something that enters my mind a lot is how much is enough. And I always feel like Facepunch has enough money. So whatever we do, it isn't to make money for us, it's to make money for developers. It seems like Garry has a set focus on allowing the players and developers to create and play the things they want to, and on top of that, reward those that spent their blood, sweat, and tears to give back to the independent developer who already is utilizing and also choosing to create games and content on the S&box platform. With this amount of transparency coming directly from Garry himself does seem rather relieving in this regard, since so many people are still wrapping their heads around how this monetization system will truly work. But Garry's focus is on the developers themselves and giving them an opportunity to properly create the game that they want and possibly also sell that on the world's biggest digital video game storefront, Steam. It's time we got into the advantages and disadvantages with S&box itself, as we are talking about the idea of it possibly being an adult version of Roblox. We have to talk about what makes the game good and bad currently. For the advantages, S&box is built on the Source 2 engine. It's the first of its kind to be a third-party exclusive to the Source 2 engine outside of Valve themselves, and is also utilized and updated from time to time thanks to Valve's code that is being utilized in Counter-Strike 2's version of Source 2. Yes, you heard that right, it's the same engine, but there's two different versions. The version that Facepunch is working on for S&box and the one that Valve is using to make CS2 and any other future games down the line on it. Source 2 allows for surprisingly realistic looking games and environments for the graphics and realism snobs out there that want to develop such a game. S&box does support VR by default and also has an option to crossplay with people who do not have a VR headset, just like in VRChat. This could be an interesting alternative, which hopefully I'll cover in a future video. The game is launching on Steam when it does officially release, and Garry has clarified and talked about the idea of allowing you down the line to take games that you've created within S&box and release them as standalone games on Steam as a direct platform. Now for the disadvantages. First off, the character and art direction with Terry and the sausage characters is already controversial. Another disadvantage is it's incredibly early, meaning that even when the game does officially release, whenever that is, the amount of content will still not compare to both Roblox and its predecessor Garry's Mod by a whopping 17 years. It simply just makes sense. One disadvantage that will truly turn some people off is the copyright. This has been something I've talked about in a recent video, and Facepunch has been more lenient with Garry's Mod as it is a mod of Half-Life 2 itself, utilizing the Steam Workshop. While S&box is an officially licensed standalone Source 2 game, copyright is something that has yet to be properly described as to what can and can't be done. But in my opinion, if the copyright rules are heavily enforced, then people will just still keep making what they feel they want to make, as they did in games like Garry's Mod. S&box has a ton of potential in terms of possibilities of being an alternative live service platform for the demographic that seems slightly older than the Roblox audience and more interested in the weird, wacky, edgy, and adult-rated themes of games that they can play with their friends after a long day, but also benefit incredibly well to those that want to develop and create their games that they've always wanted to do and possibly sell their game down the line directly on Steam. Personally, what do you think about this? Do you feel like it's rather untrue, or do you think it slightly resembles what Garry has envisioned for this game to truly be? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this and want to see more S&box content, check out how access to Source 2 could become a lot easier for you very soon. Thanks for watching.